Established Rich coming right back at you. Sometimes a story isn't really about what people are arguing about. Sometimes it's about what people have stopped questioning. Because this week, the NBA found itself in one of the strangest cultural debates you will ever see. Not about a trade, not about a playoff race, not about a superstar, but about a strip club. The Atlanta Hawks announced that they were hosting Magic City Night during a game against the Orlando Magic. If you from Atlanta, you already know what that means. Magic City ain't just a club. It's a piece of Atlanta pop culture. Rappers have made songs about it. Athletes have talked about it. Hip-hop stories have been written inside that building for decades. To some people, it's almost a landmark. So the Hawks decided to celebrate it, plain and simple. Magic City-style food, music, exclusive merch, and a performance by T.I. The team called it a way to create a true Atlanta experience. But not everybody thought it was a good idea. One NBA player looked at the promotion and said something a lot of people wasn't expecting. That player was Luke Kornet, and he ain't hold back. He said the NBA should be a place that protects and respects women. He said the league should think about the daughters, wives, sisters, and mothers who are part of the sport. In other words, he asked a simple question. Is celebrating a strip club inside an NBA arena really the message we want to send? Now, before I say anything else, let's check this out.
Your Atlanta Hawks are facing some backlash right now over their plans to celebrate the iconic strip club Magic City at one of their games. Magic City Monday is set to happen March 16th, and it's going to feature Magic City's famous wings, a halftime show by T.I., and a limited edition hoodie. We haven't heard that there will be any dancers there, by the way, but some are calling for a cancellation, including San Antonio Spurs player Luke Kornet, who wrote an open letter to the NBA arguing that the promotion objectifies women.
This did not sit well with center for the Spurs, Luke Kornet, who took to social media and said, quote, Brian Finneran, the NBA should desire to protect and esteem women, many of whom work diligently every day to make this the best basketball league in the world. We should promote an atmosphere that is protective and respectful of the daughters, wives, sisters, mothers, and partners that we know and love. Allowing this night to go forward without protest would reflect poorly on us as an NBA community, specifically in being complicit in the potential objectification and mistreatment of women in our society, unquote, Brian Finneran.
People feel different ways about these establishments.
Okay.
Obviously, because I guess you have both ends of the spectrum, and I'm not telling you either side is right or wrong, but there are situations where it is not a good situation for the women that are involved. So I can understand his sentiment. Maybe he's had a situation or an experience with this, and a family member had something happen. I don't know. But he feels strongly that it should not be happening, and he feels strongly that it's not the right thing to do for the Hawks and the NBA.
Or maybe nothing happened. It's just his feelings, and that's how he feels, and he was expressing how he felt at the time.
I guess my thing is, and we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, but if you had Diamond and Sapphire at midcourt doing an exhibition, so to speak,
is it inappropriate?
Yeah, that would be inappropriate.
Yeah.
You're giving a shout out to an institution in town.
The Hawks said their night will show love to the cultural institution, with appearances from local legends like T.I., the establishment's famous chicken wings, exclusive merchandise, and more.
Now, when you watch that clip, you can see exactly how this debate started. Because on one side, you have people saying, this is just Atlanta culture. They say Magic City is part of the city's history. They say it's entertainment. It's just fun. But on the other side, you have people asking a very different question. What message does this send? And that question hit me personally because I have a daughter, a 6-year-old daughter. And the first thing that popped in my head when I heard about this promotion was a very simple question. Would I take my daughter to Magic City Night at an NBA game? Just think about that for a second. You sitting in the arena, the lights are flashing, the music is blasting, the game is going, and the entire theme of the night is based on a strip club. Would you be comfortable explaining that to your child? Would you feel good about that moment? Because this is where the conversation gets uncomfortable. Some people gonna say I'm overthinking it. Some people gonna say it's just promotion. Some people will say it's just the culture. But here's the problem. We have become so desensitized to certain things that when certain people speak up, we act like they the crazy one. Luke Kornet said something that 10 or 15 years ago would have been common sense. But today, people look at him like he's out of touch, like he don't get it, like he don't understand Atlanta. And that right there is why this story is important. Because this ain't really about Magic City. This is about how things that used to make people feel uncomfortable have become normalized. Now, before anybody misunderstands what I'm saying, let me make one thing clear. This video is not about disrespecting strippers. That's not my point. There are women who work in the industry who are trying to survive, pay their bills, and take care of their families. Some of them are single mothers. Some of them are putting themselves through school. Some of them are doing what they gotta do to make it through a hard moment in their life. And nobody should be sitting up here acting like they better than them. But just because something exists don't mean it should be celebrated everywhere. There's a difference between something existing and something being marketed. And that's where this conversation starts getting real. See, strip clubs have always been a part of the nightlife. They've always been a part of adult entertainment. But they were also understood to be adult spaces. Places you went at night. Places you went without your kids. Places that were not built for family environments. That was an unwritten rule. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Hip-hop started celebrating strip clubs like they were cultural monuments. Songs started being written about them. Rappers started bragging about how much money they could throw. Athletes started talking about which one was the most lit after the game. And eventually, one club became the symbol of it all. The legendary Atlanta strip club, Magic City.
The way people have reacted when I said I spent $10,000 every time I went to Magic City, that in itself shows me how much of our culture that people don't actually know. Like, spending money is just a thing. If you're gonna go to Magic City, you can't just go. You can go in there and don't spend no money. But you know, it just ain't. It don't feel like you even need to be in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How much have y'all spent in Magic City?
The most I ever did like one night was like 25, but that was like
25,000?
Yeah, say it again.
25,000. Not 2,500, 25,000.
I don't know why I did that though.
Say it again. Say it again so everybody can hear it, so they don't just look at me like I'm crazy. This man, how old are you?
25. At the time, I was like
25, and he spent 25. Y'all talking about, man.
Hey.
If you know Atlanta culture, you know the name. For years, Magic City has been treated like an Atlanta landmark. Rappers from all over the country have shouted it. Superstars have celebrated their album release there. Championship parties have happened there. And at some point, the line between nightlife and mainstream culture started getting blurred. What used to be a private adult space started becoming a public brand. And that's how we arrived at this moment. A night inside an NBA arena celebrating a strip club. Now again, the Atlanta Hawks are not saying they're gonna have strippers there. They're not saying it's gonna be an adult show. They talking about food, music, merch, and a performance from Atlanta rap icon T.I. But the symbolism is still there. The brand is still there, and the message is still there. And that's what people like Luke Kornet are talking about. Because whether we want to admit it or not, symbols matter. The NBA is one of the most family-oriented sports league in the world. Kids watch these games. Families go to the arenas. Parents bring their children to experience basketball for the first time. And now, one of those nights is built around the theme of a strip club. Some people think it's funny, some people think it's culture. But other people are asking a very different question. When did we become so comfortable with this? When did we start acting like this was normal? Because when you step back and look at it without being defensive, it's kind of strange. You have the National Basketball Association, one of the biggest sports leagues in the world, and they're throwing a party inside a family arena based on a strip club. Just say that out loud and see how it sounds. This is what Luke Kornet was trying to point out. But instead of people thinking about what he actually said, they started making fun of him. Like y'all probably gonna do me. They said he was out of touch. They said he was trying to police Atlanta culture. They said he was acting like a lame. And that reaction tells you something important. We've reached a point where if somebody questions certain things, they become a target. The person asking the question becomes the problem. And that's what happens when society becomes desensitized. Things that used to be private become public. Things that used to be adult become mainstream. And things that used to be questioned become untouchable. But the real question is not about Magic City. The real question is about standards. What do we normalize? What do we want to celebrate? And what do we want our children growing up around? Listen, the real issue is not Magic City. The real issue is how desensitized we have become. Because if you go back 20 years, even 15 years, this conversation would have been very different. If an NBA team had announced a strip club themed night inside a family arena back then, people would have been shocked. Parents would have been asking questions. Media would have been having debates. But today, everybody just shrugged. They say it's culture. They say it's Atlanta. They say it's not a big deal. And that reaction tells you how far this culture has shifted. Because the things that used to make us pause are not the things we celebrate. And when somebody like Luke Kornet stands up and says, hey, maybe this ain't a good idea, people look at him like he's the problem, like he's old-fashioned, like he just don't get it. But sometimes the person who questions something is not the person that's out of touch. Sometimes they the only ones who's paying attention. See, the NBA has spent years building this image as a family league. They promote community. They promote respect. They promote education. They talk about role models. They talk about positive influences. And then at the same time, you have promotions that blur the line. Promotions that turn adult entertainment into a marketing thing. And again, this ain't about disrespecting women who work in the industry. That is not the point. The point is about what we celebrate. It's a lot of things in life that exist, but not everything needs to be put on a pedestal. Not everything needs to be turned into a festival. And this is where my personal life comes into this conversation, because I'm not just talking as a fan, I'm talking as a father. I have a daughter and she's 6 years old. And when I think about this situation, I ask myself a simple question. Would I take my daughter to Magic City night at an NBA game? Would I sit there with her in that arena knowing the entire theme of the night is based on a strip club? Would I feel comfortable explaining to her what's going on? Because at some point, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of world are we building for our children? Are we building a culture that protects them or a culture that entertains adults at their expense? See, one of the reasons this debate is so intense is because strip clubs have become attached to hip-hop culture. In Atlanta especially, clubs like Magic City have been part of the music industry. Hits have been broken in that building. The culture around the club is real. But again, just because something is part of the nightlife don't mean it have to be part of family entertainment. There's a difference between celebrating a city's music and celebrating a city's strip club. And that's the line people are debating right now. Some people think it's just fun. Some people think it's a tribute to Atlanta. But other people are starting to ask bigger questions. When did we become so comfortable normalizing everything? When did we stop being able to say, maybe this ain't the right place for that? Because if somebody can't even ask that question without being mocked, then the culture has changed more than we realize. And maybe the real value of this moment is that it forces people to have a conversation. Because when you have kids, especially daughters, you start looking at the world a little differently. You start asking questions you never asked before. You start thinking about the example being set around them. And sometimes those questions make people uncomfortable. But that don't mean that they wrong. Sometimes it just means somebody had the courage to say what a lot of people was thinking. And whether you agree with Kornet or not, one thing is certain. He started a conversation. And in today's world, that might be more important than people realize. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe, establish Rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.